Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pato.
Pato. How was your weekend?
My weekend was all right. Friday was a little bit of a bummer. I was supposed to go see my favorite all-time punk band, Apocalypse Hoboken, play at the Chop Shop in Chicago, Illinois. And Friday morning, the lead singer came down with COVID, so the show got canceled, and it was really really disappointing. Primarily because I had kind of planned on dying at the show. I had me and friend of the show, Lee Jacobson of JacobsonLegalServices.com. We go to, we used to see them a lot in high school, and then in like the early 2000s, they kind of broke up, but they'll reunite and play every 4 or 5 years. And if you look at any of the live photos from the band's reunion shows in the past like 20 years or so, we're always like right up front, like smashed into the crowd, right? Like, pinned between people in the front stage and shit. And I was kind of thinking like, how am I going to do that this year? How am I going to do that this show? Am I going to like hang in the back and like not mosh or anything? Or am I just like, going to sit on the sidelines? And I thought, no, I'm going to go in and we'll just fucking see what happens. So I had thought, if something happens, like this would be a fitting way to go out. I wasn't being like suicidal or anything, but I was just like, well, just, if I go, this is the way to go. And then the show got canceled. So I was like, oh, fuck, you know.
So it
Um,
wasn't your time, is what
it
you're
was not my
saying.
time. The fates intervened and said, no, 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 you have to do this Area 51 episode first. So I have not done I have not done producing content for the Patreon either. So I guess the gods spoke. But yeah, that was I don't know. I must have been saved by the Arizona jackalope.
Jesus, you have been doing your research.
I have, and fuck the snallygaster, fuck the squonk. I want to make the Arizona jackalope the new thing because they're very cute and they're very marketable. And I think at the Tennessee Dogman Convention in August, I'm going to staple some antlers to some bunny heads and sell them so we can use the proceeds to set up a memorial fund for Jim Jam after I completely annihilate his ass in skee ball. So that was Friday. Saturday, I got to go swimming, play some D&D, which was fun.
That's
Uh,
cool.
yeah, and then so we always talk about Joe Bob Night on Fridays. I'm a big MST3K fan, and something really historic happened that they're really not talking about on the internet because I guess Friday there was a lot going on. But Joel Hodgson / Robinson, the original host of MST3K, came back for the first time in 30 years to do an episode of MST3K on their. So MST3K came back and they did 2 seasons on Netflix. They were pretty good with Jonah Ray / Jonah Heston. And now they launched their own app called the Gizmoplex. And they do new episodes, but you have to use the app and you have to either subscribe to the season, which is like over $100. It's like ridiculously expensive, or you have to buy the shows individually for like $1 an episode or something, which makes way more sense because it's not like there's 100 episodes this season. So whatever.
Right.
I don't think you buy them. I think you rent them. But even so, you're only going to really watch it once. So it's kind of a weird delivery method that I'm not entirely sold on. But I am a huge MST3K fan, so I was like, fuck it. And yeah, this Friday, the original host came back for Demon Squad, his first episode in 30 years. So that was fucking awesome. And then
Wow. That's nice.
yeah,
I didn't know that. Yeah.
I don't know why it wasn't a bigger. Well, because like I said, there was a lot going on Friday, so the
Well,
internet was kind of distracted with other things, um, and I guess it just kind of slipped through the news cycle. But there was that, and then I pretty much spent a lot of time this weekend powering through the new Alan H. Greenfield book, Saucers and Saucerers, the stranger than fiction story of UFOs and those who chase them. It was a good read. I read it over the course of like 3 4 days, and would highly recommend it to all of our listeners. And I hope that we get to talk about it more in the near future.
spoiler alert. We very well may. Um,
Yes.
just putting that out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to
Okay.
cock
Yeah,
tease it. I just want to put the tip in on that one. I didn't want to
yeah, that's
throw
okay.
it all away.
That's all
And
right.
then also obviously did a metric butt ton of research about the 90s Tempe, Arizona music scene for our July Patreon episode on Arizona. So if you want some teasers, go listen to Dead Hot Workshop or Roger Klein and the Peacemakers, because
Oh,
when we do Arizona for July,
are you
uh,
giving me the heads up? For the
no,
for the Patreon, yeah. Well, we keep calling it the communion episode dropped over there, but
Mhm.
it is actually Pat O sharing never before heard or seen details about his infamous alien encounter as a boy and the ties that there could potentially be between his encounters and his experiences and Whitley Strieber's communion. So,
right?
um, plus all the other shit that you get over there. Why aren't you subscribed to the fucking the Patreon yet? And there's a Discord now. It's not too poppin' quite yet. I'm a little disappointed, but I guess I'm the one that has to make that happen.
That's
But
where I think we should get the nudes group chat going on Discord.
nudes group chat on Discord,
I,
maybe.
I'm gonna start posting feed pics up on that motherfucker. Speaking of which, oh my god, thank God I made that fucking joke. I realized that on our merch show, on our merch t-shirt spring thing, we now sell not flip flops. They're called slip-ons, or what are they called?
Slides.
Slides. Fucking whatever. They're like flip flops or sandals. And I will gift a pair to anybody that will wear them and then take pictures of their feet in them. So I guess I should make this open to all genders, even though, like, dudes, we don't want to see your fucking feet. But I mean, whatever.
If you don't know, maybe Greg Morrill has some really fantastic feet. I'd see those feet.
I mean, I'm willing to bet that he does, but how much are those things? They're like $30.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, the resale, at least if I don't know. So yes, if you want to be an official on Wednesdays, we talk weird foot model.
Foot model, yeah.
Send your either give us a call at 773-59 weird, or send us your resume to what's the email? I don't know. Just hit us up on social media because I don't have access to the email.
On
But
Wednesdays, we talk weird at gmail.com. But there is also social media. You can contact myself or Pat O directly. You should probably contact Pat O directly, since this
right,
is
because we'll have to get your
his
size.
baby.
And just forewarning, we're gonna need to ask for your address, not because we're gonna show up and kill you, because we need to know where to sell the fucking sandals. Send the fucking sandals. So like, I'm not gonna ask for your social, all right? But don't say you're gonna do this and then be like, well, I don't want you to know where I live. How are you gonna get the slip-ons? Okay, so just think about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I don't want to kill you because if I do, that means that it's one less listener to the show. So, um,
Exactly.
you know,
You are never more safe.
right.
You are never more safe than when you are on Wednesdays we talk weird listener.
Exactly.
I will
Exactly.
I will make sure, I will go out of my fucking way that no harm ever comes to you. In fact,
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
somebody is threatening your existence, let me know, and I will make sure that, if you need an abortion, I will take you to a state where you can get one,
Yep.
just so that you don't have to do any back alley shit that could potentially risk your life, because we value you as a listener that goddamn much.
Yeah.
So there you go. That was my weekend. How was yours? It was your birthday. It was your birthday party. Happy
No,
birthday.
it's not my birthday yet. My
Right.
birthday is June 30th, and but it was my birthday party. I don't have just a birthday. I have a birth month. That's what I do. It's always a big to do, and that's just how I do things. But yeah, I'll start with Friday night. Friday night, I was the MC at the Circle of Mother Earth's Magical Masquerade in Williamsburg, Ohio.
Nice. How'd that go?
Well, it was fun. I'll say that it was fun. I had a good time. There was a DJ there that played music all night. He was a good guy. His name's DJ Bingo, and definitely
Sounds
check him
like
out
a
because
juggalo.
he was fun. He probably is a juggalo. He gave me very heavy juggalo vibes. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
But the venue was really really cool. It's at this place called Terror Town, and it's an old western town. And during the fall season, it's haunted, and they do all kinds of cool shit there. So that was neat. But like nobody showed up to it, so that's a problem. This masquerade event is put on, and you know what? I'll tell you, they did a really solid job. They had food, they were vendors selling shit. They had a whole event. There was a costume contest. I mean, there was all kinds of things planned. The event organizers, I don't know what happened there. I don't know why it didn't do well. But it's a charity event anyway, and anytime you make a ticket purchase or anything else, I mean, it all goes towards charity. So, Next year, you guys should probably go to that because this was not good. It was not a good turnout, and I don't understand why. I don't know, but I had a good time. I mean, it was just me drinking with Red and Potato Ann, and we just drank, and eventually we left a little bit early. There was karaoke because I don't know why not. But yeah, anyway, so I did that. That was cool. I did actually speak with the owner quite a bit, and there may be things coming in the future. And if you are actually part of the Patreon and in the Discord, you might have a little bit of an idea of what that could be. So,
Oh, damn.
yeah, which is a big deal. It is a big deal. So stay tuned for that. But that's really all I can say about it. And then, of course, I had my birthday party Saturday night, and I don't remember any of it, which means that obviously I had a great time. So,
What were
yeah,
you drinking at least? What were you drinking?
rum and Coke. It's what I drink.
Right.
That's my drink of choice. It's rum and Coke. At some point in the night, so I wear a sensor on my arm that monitors my blood sugar because I'm a type 1 diabetic,
Hmm.
and I guess it came off, and God love my friends. They were so concerned. They thought that I needed to have it immediately, or I could die right then and there. I didn't, but that's what they thought. And so, they all got together and watched a YouTube video to put the sensor back on my belligerently drunk ass. And
While you flailed around.
right. And apparently the one like fell off, and so the old one fell off, and I was just gonna like pick it up and put it back on, and like you absolutely can't do that. Like that's what I did it anyway. So they were like, "Oh, let's help you out." They did put it on wrong, so I wasted a whole sensor, and now I don't get to have one for about 5 days, which does suck. But I'll live. I'll be all right. So
Wow.
there's that. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, it was good. It was a good time as far as I know. And then Sunday, I spent that day. I spent Sunday recovering. So, but that was my weekend. I did also do other things this week, and some things you guys should check out coming up. I recorded an episode, a different episode, a different show called the Burning Veil podcast. I was on there with Ryan Tremblay from Monster Radio, Ryan, and we talked about hell all kinds of things. It was supposed to specifically be about the Dogman and the Gugwe, but things kind of got off track. So if you want to listen to that, listen to that. I also recorded an episode with a podcast called Strange Dominions, and actually, that guy was awesome. He was really cool, and I'd love to get him on the show. Um, and I probably will. But if you haven't checked out his podcast, you should. I don't think my episode is out yet, but I would definitely, be prepared for it because it's really good stuff, and I think you guys would really like it. So that was my weekend.
Cool.
That was my weekend. You want some news?
Sure. What are you
There
gonna
are
talk
lots.
about?
There are lots of things in the news this week.
Aren't there?
Yeah, there are. So and some of the stuff I'm not going to mention.
Because it's just too unbelievable, even for this show. It would be you would think that we were pulling your leg. You'd be
Well,
like, get the fuck out of here. What are you talking? That's impossible.
as
Yeah.
much as I desperately want to talk about that because I'm a woman in America, I won't. I know that you guys are hearing enough of it because I know I am. I've been avoiding social media like the plague because it is fucking depressing, right? And that's how you handle problems here on Wednesdays. You talk with you ignore them, and they go away. And
We are definitely the two spokespeople for that. That Me Undies, Mattress Spring. I mean, seriously,
absolutely,
that Denial should be a sponsor of the show.
Denial, yes, sponsored by Denial, yeah. But yeah, I'm going to just avoid that altogether. But there were some things. There's this like new Bigfoot picture going around of some Bigfoot smiling allegedly in the woods. That's cool, I guess. Another video going around of somebody filming like a shadow thing behind a tree, supposedly. I don't care about that. No, 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 no. That is not the news that I care about this week. What I care about this week is that Jetpack Man is back.
Wow, I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, there was another sighting. If you guys aren't aware, we've kind of been I don't want to say tracking the story, but definitely talking about it every time it shows up. There
Mm-hmm.
have been reports of a man flying a jetpack around in, unreasonable places that he shouldn't be allowed to or be able to even fly one in. But yeah, it was. I think they said he was like 16,000 feet up um, when it was seen, and of course, it's around the LAX
California.
airport.
Yeah. Yeah.
California. But yeah, another jetpack man sighting. And that's really it. Just they reported there's a man out here flying a jetpack, and they're just like, oh, that's weird.
Do you think he's Q?
Do I think he's Q or do I think he's cute?
Oh, I was gonna say Q.
Oh, in fact, I'd probably fuck the jetpack man. Um,
If
it
he's
could,
got a
yeah,
jetpack,
sure, it could be Q. Why not? I don't know. I
right?
haven't talked to him. If he ever lands, I'll ask him. Somebody ask him, "Are you Q?" And
It
then
must
ask
be.
him if he's single.
Yeah. It was done this way because it must be done this way.
I don't I don't know what the deal with the jetpack man is. I'm very curious. But it is very fitting for tonight's episode because we kind of have talked about before if this could just be some rich asshole with a jetpack flying around or whatever. And although I don't think it is, I don't know what it is. I can't tell you what it is, but I don't think it's an actual man flying a jetpack because we don't have jetpacks that can do what this thing does. So I don't know.
Right.
What do you think about the jetpack man?
I had heard that it was like a drone on a dummy or something, or a mannequin. I had read that somewhere. Someone released a video where they were trying to prove that that's what it is. I honestly don't have, like, because that's the thing is that when you look at it from like the ground in these videos, it's like people try to hypothesize like his height and everything and how far up he is, but it's not an exact science because you have to take into account like distance and perspective and all that stuff. So I don't know. I don't. I really don't know. I don't think it's worthy of us doing a whole episode. Maybe like a Patreon butt nugget or something, where we do like a 20-minute like these are the
Sure, jetpack
facts.
man. Yeah.
These are all the sightings. These are what we know for sure. This is all that. I don't think that I never got the vibe that that was necessarily supernatural because like it's a jetpack. Like it's not necessarily like a winged humanoid or something crazy like the shit that you see in like the South America countries where it looks like an angel or like Mothman or something like that, right? Where it's a more unnatural looking shape that's flying. This looks like a dude with a jetpack, right? So
Yeah, maybe. There's been like there's like a phenomenon that happens where people see just people without wings, people without equipment, just flying in the air. And that's not really something anybody talks about anymore. It kind of reminds me of our buddy Adam from the Pine Barrens Institute. I think he would be interested in that topic. But it's kind of an old, outdated thing. Back when I was a wee 40 researcher, I remember reading about these a lot or seeing pictures and video of just people flying in the air with nothing. So I don't know if the jetpack man actually like has a jetpack or if it's just that they're seeing this human and flying in the air with nothing. I don't know.
mm,
There isn't enough. They're just saying it looks like someone's flying around with a jetpack, and it's pilots that are reporting this. It's not like it's people that don't know what the fuck's in the sky or aren't
right,
out
yeah.
there all the time. So I don't know. I agree. Maybe we should do like a little one off on the Patreon about it. Because I mean, if he keeps this shit up, we're gonna have to. I mean, who is this man? If you are a jetpack man and you listen to the show, you should come on the show. And I'm always hopeful. Like if you're Bigfoot and you want to come talk about it on the show, you should. Nobody's brought back yet. So or yeah, nobody has volunteered their time to talk about their being a Bigfoot or a jetpack man. So
Yeah, I think that's something where I'm just kind of biased is that um I just figured that everyone that's into this stuff had some experience with it in the past. You know what I mean? Because I've had such a maybe it's a creative interpretation of history, but I've always and I've talked about it at length on the show and on the Patreon and whatnot. But it's interesting when I come across people that are like, no, I've never had anything weird happen to me. It's like, really? Like never, nothing, nothing.
never.
They're like, oh my god, like that's boring.
That's so
Sorry, man.
boring. Yeah, right. I can't imagine. I don't know.
Wha- one thing I did have, I didn't mention it because it's not that significant, but I had my godson's birthday party this weekend, and I gave him, amongst other things, but I gave him the Mothman Learns the ABCs book that I picked up from
Oh,
Forest Ranger Bob or whatever the fuck his name is at
Danner.
yeah at that thing we were at.
Oh my
At
god.
UFO Fest, at the Withville UFO Fest. He had the booth next to ours, and I went over and I bought the Mothman book. And I got it home and I read it, and I was like, "This is fucking." I thought it was really cute. And my godson's birthday was coming up, and I was like, you know what? Instead of it sitting on my shelf, I'm gonna give it to him, and I'll next time I see the guys, I'll buy another one. And in the inside cover, I wrote like a inscription, "My godson," and I said that the world is more interesting when you believe in monsters, right?
Oh.
And I honestly believe that, and that's how I've always maintained that I keep an open mind about this stuff, is because if you don't, like, imagine like the black and white bland reality that you're condemning yourself to. You know what I mean? It's like Pleasantville before everyone starts fucking. You know, it's just like you could live like this if you wanted to, but I don't know why you would. So,
Fair enough.
uh, right.
So you're saying you would like to believe that Jetpack Man is real, but you don't.
Oh, I think it's real. I think I mean, the idea that it's a kite or something, right? Because that was one of the things that it was like a kite or a drone. I mean, look at what it's going to be. Okay, either it's a dude in a jetpack, it's some kind of weird supernatural thing, which I don't think. Right? I think it's a dude with a jetpack, or it's a drone that's carrying a dummy or something like that.
Or it's a balloon. That idea was posed. They had pictures of a Jack Skellington balloon. Um,
Right, but balloons are too. You get air currents up there, and it's going to flip around all over the place. I don't think it could be a balloon or a kite. I think it would have to be something solid state. It would have to be like a dummy on a drone or something. You know what I mean? Something with
yeah,
weight to it that's going to withstand air turbulence. If it
I
was a
would like to.
balloon, it would flip around and shit.
I would like to ask the pilots who've seen it more details because, like I said, we don't know if it's actually wearing a jetpack. We don't know if it's not. We don't know. I mean, there's so many details that aren't being asked when they're reporting these sightings, or I don't know if maybe they're just not sharing those details with us or what. But
Well, the videos I remember seeing, and granted, like I didn't see this most recent one, and I haven't looked at them in a while, but I have looked at them. It seems to me like it's doing the pose that you think a person would have to do if they had an actual fucking rocket strapped to their back, right? Like their arms are at 90 degrees, and they're not moving their legs backwards because the flames are shooting out of this box on their back, the jetpack, right? So you got to be real careful to make sure that shit stays behind you and your feet don't go underneath it. So you got to kind of have very rigid posture, which if you were a dummy, you're not moving around either, right? And when you think about how skydivers do all that crazy flips and shit just by kind of leaning one way or the other, and right, because like if you kind of move your center of gravity forward, you'll move forward, or if you want to go back, you go back. So like I think that that's why when you see these videos, the videos that I remember seeing is the person's very still. They're not like waving and shit or like, you know, flipping around or anything. They're just kind of like in the air, like up super high, like flying around, but they're not moving a whole lot. You don't see the legs kicking. You don't see the person doing somersaults, right? And that to me says either like, no, that's what a human being would have to do if they had a rocket strapped to their back, or that's what a dummy would do that's not going to move, that doesn't have articulate limbs if it's being carried around by a drone. So those are the two things I subscribe to. Is either it's literally it's actually a dude with a jetpack, or it's a dummy or mannequin or something.
it is really weird. There's only one video of the Jetpack Man.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, it just doesn't. It just. I mean, yeah. I guess you can kind of speculate as to what's going on there, but not really. It's just too far away, too fast, too blurry to tell. So I don't know. I guess if that's what they're saying, I don't. I guess I would assume too that it would be a jetpack. But
Yeah.
anyway, that was the news for the week.
Cool.
Let's uh let's talk about this subject that's been done to death. This
Well,
Area 51. Um,
let's do it.
you know,
I think I got something that's
oh,
very
go ahead.
very groundbreaking for this. I'm not going to get into it just yet. We'll get there eventually, but
Ooh,
I think
okay.
I
I'm
got
good.
some new info that the listeners might not be totally up to date on.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, what the hell is Area 51? It is a military installation out in the Nevada desert. Do you say Nevada or Nevada?
Say Vegas.
You say Vegas.
The
Fuck the
desert
rest of the
surrounding
state.
Vegas, whatever.
Vegas.
I ain't talking about
Um,
Pahrump.
anyway, um, So yeah, it's a big military installation. But what's been crazy about it is that the government did not officially recognize or claim Area 51 until June 25th, 2013, 9 years ago.
Right.
Um, which I was surprised by that. I did not realize that it had been. I guess I thought that they had laid claim to it before, but they did not. And
No,
everybody. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say no. They. I'm getting into some of my info right now, but they so vehemently denied its existence and refused to acknowledge it publicly before then. Then in 1995, when they were making the movie Independence Day with your boy Will Smith, um, the scenes that took place at Area 51, the military was originally going to provide personnel vehicles and costumes for the film, and they backed out because the producers refused to remove the Area 51 references. So that's something
Wow.
we've kind of talked about on this show before, how
Yeah.
Hollywood is definitely in bed with the military because where the fuck are you going to get the battleships when you're making the movie Battleship? And yeah, they didn't even want to loan their stuff to a movie that said Area 51 as of 1995. They were still, it was the worst kept secret, but they were still fucking rock solid denying it.
I had wanted to talk about something. I think it was last week's episode. Um, in the news a week prior to that, Clinton had gone on and was talking about like UFOs in Area 51. He said that he sent people in there to make sure there's no aliens there, and he said that there was not. Prior to that point, I have a very vivid memory. And I know I've talked about it on the show, and I fucking who knows where. And I'm not going to go back and listen to 120 episodes just to not find it. Um, Clinton made the claim that he was denied access to Area 51. He really wanted to go there, and they would not let him. They wouldn't let him go.
I remember because he used to do the late night talk shows. He was the first president that would do that stuff. He did it during his campaign for presidency. I remember he played saxophone on Letterman or some shit. And I want to say that they would throw him questions about it once in a while.
Right.
Kimmel's done that with people in the past too, and it's always kind of tongue in cheek and stuff. But they've asked him point blank about UFOs and disclosure and what's going on, and the president's always claim ignorance. Like if there is, I don't know about it, or there's nothing to it, or whatever. But yeah, they do get asked the questions from time to time. It would not surprise me.
They do, and like when I was trying to dig for that, because I know that's something that I had read about, and it wasn't that hard to find initially. It was kind of everywhere, and I was like, wait, is that? Because I'll read something like that, and it sounds ridiculous, but I'm like, wait, is that true? And then after I did digging, on it, I found out that it was true. There was actually video of it where you could hear him talking about it. None of that fucking exists now, and that's weird to me. Maybe it's a Mandela effect thing. I don't know. I remember when we did the the Wright Pat Air Force Base episode where we talked about the one, I think it was a senator or governor or something from a state, and he had asked about the Roswell crash debris and whatever. He was told, I can't show you, and don't ever fucking ask that ever again, or I'll shoot you in the face. They didn't say that, but pretty much like they were like, do not ask us about that ever again. So I was like, am I misremembering this? And maybe that's I got the two mixed up, but I fucking swear to you, it was Clinton, and he was gung ho about going to Area 51 and figuring it out, and they denied him access. He wasn't allowed in.
It it was Marco Rubio, I think, is the guy. He was a Republican senator that was really big on UFO disclosure, and it was kind of part of his. He was a Republican nominee for the White House, and he would bring it up a lot. He didn't bring it up a lot, but it would come up, and he
Right.
definitely was the guy that was like, "No, I'll try to get to the bottom of this. I'm fucking just curious as you guys are." You know.
But Clinton's been big into it as well. I mean, he did say, that was the recent news was that he tried to, he sent people in there to check, make sure there was no aliens, and there wasn't. He just says it's for testing craft, military craft. And nowadays, in 2022, that's still the agenda. It's just because they're testing military craft. That's it. That's what they do there at Area 51. That's the official answer.
Yeah, and I have to say that, it's always a red flag when you know that these secret installations exist, these top secret installations exist. And you know that stuff is going on there. And when you try to get information or the military won't acknowledge anything happening there. Like that's obviously a red flag because you're like, look, this space doesn't exist just for shits and giggles. What the fuck are you doing? One of the things about Area 51, though, is that the amount of info that's been released about the things that we do know that's happening there, them test, it's, kind of a research and development Air Force base where they'll build stuff at different locations and then they'll ship it out there to be test flown. That there's enough going on there to keep that place busy. I'm not saying there's not clandestine hinky shit going on, but there's enough just general military top secret stuff going on there as well. You know,
I mean, I guess so. You know what? Eventually, when they come out and just said we're testing planes, well, who gives a fuck about that? Who cares?
I mean, that's still stuff that
See,
they
you
keep
can't
top
even
secret.
answer it.
No, no, I can, I can. That's listen. A lot of what our military's superiority comes from the fact that other countries don't know how our shit works. Right. When I was researching this, there was one of the stories I came across was that there was two Iranian or like Russian pilots or some. Oh, fuck! I should have written this down. There was two pilots from a non-friendly country that got lost on a training mission and accidentally landed in Israel. And this happened back in the 80s, right? So Israel convinces these two guys to land at their airport, their airbase. They land, I don't know, whatever they do to the pilots, they kill them or they send them back home to be killed. And they take the planes and they ship them to Area 51, right? Now, these are terrestrial objects. These are Russian MiGs in the 80s or something, right? And because now we have enemy aircraft, we have our guys fly it and we know how fast they go. We know their maneuverability capabilities. We know their weapon capabilities, right? Because when you're going against something else in combat, you don't know what's under the hood. You don't know how fast it can go or how many bullets it can carry or what kind of armaments it has. You don't have access to their missiles. We build our missiles one way. Now it's probably, I mean, now granted, this was 40 years ago. Now probably everyone's buying the weapons from the same motherfucking company. So it's a little bit different.
Well, I
But
mean,
during the Cold War, at least during the Cold War, there was genuine, like, we didn't know what the enemies had. The reason the Cold War with Russia went on as long as we did, because we thought they were a stronger military presence than they actually were, right? So there is something to be said about keeping what you have under wraps. I mean, look at all the stuff that they think is going on now with the Chinese and corporate espionage, where they're stealing our cell phone development techniques or like our all of our technology. They're kind of taking it and hacking it, and then being able to make knockoffs and shit. Right? That's just intellectual properties for cell phones and from basic technology stuff. We're not talking about like aircraft or anti-aircraft weapons or anti-radar technology and stuff like that. Stealth technology, you know. We invent it. That means that the other people don't have it. We don't want them to get a hold on it.
so I right, okay, so I understand that part of it, but why okay. All right, I get the details, but it's not like we didn't know that fucking Russia had airplanes, right? It's not like people don't know that we have fucking airplanes or we have fucking weapons or whatever. Why was it such a big deal to keep it so secret all of those years that we were, inventing shit? Nobody cares about that. Just fucking say that from the get go. Hey, we're going to be testing out airplanes over here. It's not like people didn't know, but then to continue to deny it for years and years and years and years and years and act like it just was never even a thing and only to finally, come out and be like, oh, yeah, it's just airplanes. No, it was never just airplanes. I can't tell you what it was. I'll tell you that right now. By the end of this episode, I don't think that it's as important as people put the importance onto it. But something's going on there, something else, something that would be completely fucking shocking to the entire country, and they'll never tell us what it is. But it wasn't just fucking airplanes.
I think that's definitely a possibility. I think that if they recovered any kind of alien aircraft, it would probably be sent to Area 51 or a place like Area 51 to do exactly what they did with the Russian or Iranian captured jet fighters. Right?
Right.
They're going to take it apart. They're going to see how it flies. They're going to get our test pilots in it to see if they can figure out how to fly it. What's the maneuverability? What's it got under the hood? What can it do? Right? Because you're only going to find that out if you fly it yourself. You can look at it and you can study it, but at some point, someone's going to have to get in the motherfucker and try to drive it, right? And that's the area where they did it. So I think you saw a lot of stuff test flown there, be it terrestrial stuff or maybe stuff that they found.
Right.
If you believe the Bob Lazar shit, that's 100% what they were doing there. They were flying UFOs that they either recovered from crash sites or they dug up in archaeology. You say it. I can't say it.
Archaeological.
Yes, 100%. That they found through dig sites. They found a UFO buried in fucking dirt. And they would ship it there. So I
And
think
be
it's
like, oh,
both.
jeez.
I mean, I definitely think it's and one of the things I was going to bring up, I might as well just do it now, is that in the movie Zero Dark 30, it dramatizes this, but it's been proven, or it's been at least part of the government story, that the raid on Osama bin Laden was planned and rehearsed in Area 51
Yeah.
because they needed a top secret place to do it. They didn't want anybody to know they were going after this guy, or they knew where he was at. Area 51 is a top secret facility. Okay, checks that box. And then also, given the area, the kind of geography around Groom Lake, it matched the conditions in Afghanistan, right?
Right.
It's a mountainous desert region, had the same type of temperatures and winds and all this stuff. And that's where the Navy SEALs trained to do the raid on Osama bin Laden's compound, was out of Area 51. So once again, top secret facility doesn't mean they're not doing UFO stuff, but we know that they were also doing plenty of terrestrial top secret shit as well.
Sure. And we do know that. And if they just needed a place to be like, hey guys, this is just our private place where we do all of our private shit, and that's why we have it on lockdown the way it is, that's cool. But they've never even really said that. They just go, oh, it just planes. I mean, that's an issue for me. So, and maybe that's because I live in a base town with a base. With
Mm-hmm.
the base. I live in the town with the base. It's not Area 51, but I think more shit goes on there than it does at Area 51. Actually, that is where the Roswell crash debris is supposed to be at. The
Mm-hmm.
pilots came and said that they flew it there. Um, that's the story. And so maybe planes aren't all that exciting to me because you can walk into the Air Force Museum and you can see all of these drones and this crazy technology that we've developed over the years. And so I don't know, maybe to me it's not shocking, but maybe to some military brat it is. I don't know. I don't give a shit about military or planes or weapons or whatever. But why all the rumors about Area 51 and everything that's going on? Well, first of all, the secrecy, that was a big deal. The fact that they never claimed it, but everybody knew that something was going on there. There was a huge incident where oh god, what was the organization name? What was it? Skylab took a picture of Area 51, and the military freaked the fuck out about it and was like, you absolutely cannot show that picture anywhere. I think that since then, Google Maps does have the overview. I think you can see it. But for a very long time, like even just anybody knowing at all that this place existed was a criminal offense. You'd get in trouble. And, they didn't want anybody to know about it. Um, but the news really broke on Area 51 and kind of became more of a talking point for people once a man by the name of Bob Lazar came forward and started talking about this place. And, you know, I thought about doing an episode on Bob Lazar all on its own, and maybe one day we will. Um, but I'll be honest with you, like with Skinwalker Ranch, it's one of those things that I've always heard about, but I never really read about. Pat, were you big into Bob Lazar?
So yes and no. I was familiar with the story because this all kind of came about in the 80s, and that was when I would watch Unsolved Mysteries and Inside Edition and Current Affair, and then Sightings was when UFOs finally got its own stuff. But like during the 80s, you would see maybe once a week these news programs would have like a UFO story, or they would have something about it. And Area 51 was something that was probably began to really penetrate pop culture consciousness in the 80s, and I was there for it. So if you ask me when I first heard about it, I couldn't tell you, but it had always kind of been in the background. And because of Bob Lazar. I'd say I wasn't like, I don't want to say intimately familiar because it's not like I talked to the dude, but that documentary that came out a couple years ago when he did an interview with Rogan. I mean, I watched the interview and I watched the episode he did on Joe Rogan, so like now I know a hell of a lot more from it. But that's only recently. You know, I was peripherally aware of him back in the day, but
Yeah, Bob Lazar says that, well, he showed up on a, was it a documentary? It wasn't a documentary he was originally on. It was something else, something smaller.
it was on the news with George Knapp. So one of the
Yes.
Coast to Coast hosts, George Knapp, was from. That's where I made the joke about Pahrump, Nevada. He was he was like a television anchor that would do investigative reporting, and Bob Lazar came to him and started. The two of them started investigating the story and doing stuff on the news, and he kind of opened up the thing about it. Art Bell did the same thing where the Area 51 call, which is like this famous coast to coast AM thing that I'm sure we've talked about on the show like half a dozen times already.
How
But
do you not remember that? Where fucking the whole we got taken off the air when we talked about that. You don't remember that?
no, they wiped my memory.
Wow, that was a good episode. The interrupted broadcast episode, yeah, legit fucking got taken
Wasn't
off the air.
interrupted. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
geez. Well, let me stop talking about it, things. I don't want to have to fucking do this
right,
one over.
right. Well, let's just okay. So hold on. So Bob Lazar goes out and he is anonymous and he goes, "I am a physicist and I was subcontracted to go work at Area 51 and they brought me there and they had me work on these flying saucers, and so we were reverse engineering alien technology." He, to my knowledge, did not say where the saucers came from. Um,
He said that one. He did mention that one was from an archaeology. Oh fuck.
Archaeological,
Yes, that's why I
a
brought that up
historical
earlier.
dig. Okay.
Yes.
Right. And so, he was talking about it and he would give details about how these things worked. And he mentioned that they ran off of this very specific substance called element 115, and that something that we really didn't have. It was something artificially made that we didn't really, but he made it or helped make it or something
Hmm.
during this time there. And he told a story about how he might have seen an alien, and he gave details about like the seats in it were like very small, and things like that. And this became a huge story because, especially at the time, we don't know shit about Area 51. We don't know anything about it except that it, I mean, some people knew it existed, the townspeople knew it existed, and probably the
Hmm.
people that work there, but that was it. And people lost their shit. So then Bob Lazar goes on to do this full documentary about it, and gave information there. And then the story just kind of continues to get rockier and rockier. Um, it turns out Bob Lazar's not a physicist, and that's another issue, is that he said that was his claim originally. He was a physicist, but he was brought on to work as an engineer. Those aren't the same degrees.
Hmm.
Um,
But it was because of he had invented like a rocket car or something. Like there was a newspaper, the local newspaper had done a story about how he had built a like a not like a zero energy vehicle, but he had created some crazy homemade like rocket car that he was driving around town, and the newspaper covered the story, and that was what prompted them to reach out to kind of headhunt him to come work at Area 51.
right,
That's what he claims.
right. But meanwhile, he had no background. I mean, he says that the government, once he came forward, wiped all of his credentials, but he's got no degree in anything that he claimed to have a degree in. Um, and of course, I mean, I guess if you believe the government does that type of thing, sure, okay, they wiped away his credentials or whatever. And then none of the things that he really, I mean, we've never. Something did come out later on where this element 115 ended up being very similar to. Well, we ended up creating an element 115 eventually, and some people think that maybe that is the thing that he was talking about. But we've also never built a flying saucer with it, so we don't travel through space with it or anything. So it's like, well, was he just fucking talking out of his ass and throwing out numbers and names, or, was that something that he really did predict? Um, there's just a lot of credibility issues with Bob Lazar's account. He's not got any proof. It's just like it's just like us having the big dick alien dude on. He comes on, he says, "I got the biggest dick in the world because I'm a fucking alien hybrid," and that's it. That's it. There's no other proof. There's no anything that we could,
Right.
do to make it, and that's what Bob Lazar's story is.
He says that he went to school and that he graduated and he did everything that he said he did. The schools say they never heard of him before,
Never, right?
and his response is, "Well, that's what they want you to think." Now,
Right.
does that mean that he's telling the truth? No. Does that mean that he's lying? No. It means
No.
we don't fucking know.
No
Same
idea.
thing with like what you said about like he says that they synthesized this uh element or whatever,
Element,
and
right?
they were gonna do all this shit with it, and you're like, well, but if he did, then how come we're not flying to outer space? Well, we don't know if they are. Like that's the thing is that like he's talking about when you start talking about shit that can't really be proven one way or the other, all you can do is which side of the fence do you want to be on? Do you want to be on this side? Do you want to be on that side? But it just comes down to personal opinion. Do you want to believe this guy's story because he doesn't have all the evidence to back him up isn't there, but if you believe his story, then it wouldn't be there. You know what I mean?
My personal opinion is that it's bullshit.
Right.
That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And I mean, I haven't talked to him. I haven't had a time to drill him. And people say, he is a very smart guy. And I'm sure he is. But that doesn't mean that he's not a liar. So it's that. I mean, I don't believe his story. No other people from these teams. I mean, the government. He's still alive. Bob Lazar's still alive. He wasn't taken out by the government. The FBI did raid his house at one point. He says that it's because they were looking for Element 115, but they were like, no, actually, it's because of this murder investigation that we were doing because of his company. Not that he killed anybody, but they wanted to look for it doesn't matter. Technical mumbo jumbo bullshit. But they had an answer at the ready, and it could be that. I mean, some people are like, well, why would they raid his house if they, weren't? And it's like, why not just fucking silence the guy? You're the government. You can fucking kill him and call it an accident, call it a suicide. You've done it before, government. We've seen you do it. So, I, I
I
mean,
always do. I always do wonder that, like, the fact, but maybe it's threat levels. Maybe this guy, this one lone voice, um, out there saying what he's saying isn't nearly as damaging and worth the negative publicity. Because I mean, look at like the Epstein stuff, right? Like this should have killed that guy. Everybody knows it. We
straight
make
up killed
jokes
that
about, we
guy.
made memes about it,
Yeah.
and like everyone's just like, well, maybe he did, maybe we don't really know for sure. And it's like, yeah, but come on, like all this, I don't know. So it's like sometimes they kill people and they can pretty much get away with it, and sometimes they don't, and those people are just ignored. So it's like you flip a coin. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Maybe
Well,
they
when
did.
Bob Lazar didn't have any proof. Again, so it's just claims. So without hard evidence,
But maybe killing him would have given his story more credibility, and by letting him live and letting him live
sound
and
crazy.
yeah, make him sound
Hmm.
crazy. It does more to discredit him and silence him in a certain respect than killing him would have. You
But
know,
it wasn't just him, though. There was a whole group of these subcontractors, and none of them have ever come forward and said, "Hey, you know what? Bob's right." And I find that part very strange. Like, why don't we ever see Bob and John together? And they're like, "Oh yeah, we worked together on the UFO. Remember?" Why don't they get together with each other and be like, "Look, we can prove it because we can fucking make the thing that they were having us make in the lab."
well, I think most secret missions or most stuff, okay, the secret stuff that no one talks about stays secret. You don't even know that exists. The only reason you know about some of the stuff you know about is because one person blew the whistle, because one person made a deathbed confession or wrote a book. But without those one person telling their story, there's shit going on that you don't even fucking know about because nobody talked, right? And so that's why it's like, why weren't there more whistleblowers? Well, because I don't think there always are. I think sometimes you only get one or possibly two people that speak up and talk about something, you know? For the most part, people keep their mouth shut when they're told to keep their mouth shut, especially if their lives or livelihood or their family is being threatened. You know, the
I
fact that there
suppose so.
isn't,
Yeah.
yeah, the fact that there isn't like a whole tribe of whistleblowers doesn't necessarily mean that something isn't true to me. It just means that the government was effective in scaring people into shut the fuck up. You know?
I just think there's a lot about the story that personally makes me lean very skeptical about it. And I don't fucking believe him. I don't know. But, again, I'd like to talk to him about it, but it's hard to get a hold of. I tried. Um, yes,
you didn't
he
suddenly
won't.
figure. You didn't suddenly realize that you're Facebook friends with him.
Not this guy. Not this
Not
time.
this one.
No. Um, he doesn't talk about this publicly. So why he would go on fucking Rogan show of all that piece of shit show of all things, and not credible
Yeah.
things. I don't know,
Well, he
but
was promoting a documentary, and when he went on Rogan, it was him and the guy that directed the documentary. That he didn't just do the show by himself. He had the guy that did the documentary on him come in and kind of do his thing too. So they were pimping that. That's what that was. They were trying
all
to.
right, making money. I gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, Bob. But if you want people to believe you, then you need to at least talk about it some more. Um,
Right.
just saying. I mean, but he doesn't. He doesn't really talk about it. He did those couple of things that one documentary, and I guess it sounds like a second one. I don't know. Um, and that's really it. He really hasn't said much else about it. So okay, interesting. Take that for what you will. Again, none of his credentials check out. At least there's no proof of anything. It's just a guy saying shit. I could get on the show right now and be like, oh well, I worked at Area 51 as the fucking topless maid, and I saw aliens there, and you guys wouldn't know because I'm just saying shit. I didn't take any pictures or anything. I just saw it.
But what's interesting is that more people don't do that. You know what I mean? Like you're
Work
right.
as topless maids.
Anybody. Well, actually, that's a very big.
Very big
That's
business.
that's a very big business, especially men. To go clean some old chicken hawk's house in your fucking tidy whities, and they'll pay a couple $100 an hour.
It's a good job. Yeah.
It is 100%. But it's I think that's where outside of you get like Bob Lazar and you got the Area 51 caller on Coast to Coast, which we've talked about. You don't I can't think of off the top of my head any really big Area 51 deserters that have gone public with their stories. But we know people have worked there, right? Like we know that like the base is inhabited, and we know that people go to work there every day, and we know that people have been going to work there every day since 1955, and they're all pretty much keeping their mouth shut, with the exception of possibly these two people.
I got more
So
people.
okay, all right then,
Yeah, I got a list.
allow me to get out of your way.
I know it's okay. Um, yeah, well, but I know exactly what you're saying because that is something that I have considered with this is that obviously people fucking work there.
Right.
And it's in the middle of nowhere, absolutely nowhere. And it's not like it's an easy drive to get to. Obviously they have to send in other people for other specialties and things that they're doing. Because they didn't fucking open up Area 51 in 1955, and the same fucking people that started working there then still work there now.
Mm-hmm.
Do they live there? Do they live on the base? Here at Right Pat, they live there. But is there
Mm-hmm.
housing on Area 51? I don't think so. Or at least there's been no reports of it. But then they still have other things like normal people shit. I mean, you still got to go to the grocery store and get your eggs and your shampoo. So, I mean, yeah, who are these people? What do they do? There was an incident where, and I think it was the 70s. Oh my gosh, and I should have written this one down, but I did not. Where a contractor sued the government because he got very fucking sick because of shit that they were burning at Area 51. And they've been in trouble a lot with the environmentalists. And when that happened, the government of course, was still when they were denying the existence of it. The president had signed something into law that said that like they couldn't really disclose details about the case because it could compromise details about the actual place itself. And that was a huge deal. And every single president since then has continued to extend this order every year. or at least when it comes up to question, where even if they're involved in a court case, which that's public record, they can't disclose all of the details in the public record. You can't just go and look up the law. I mean, you can, but most of it's blacked out. There's a lot of shit you can't see about it. So that's interesting. Just more weird government denial or what have you. But let's get into the things again that make this famous. Bob Lazar, of course, obviously being the biggest one, which inspired the dreaded 1995 alien autopsy footage, which we have to talk about. So a documentary came out. Can't remember the name of it. I think it was Alien Autopsy Fact or Fake or some
Sure.
stupid shit.
Yeah. I remember this.
Right. And, there was, for the first time ever, it was, finally the footage of one of the bodies captured from the Roswell crash where they conducted an alien autopsy. And it did not take very long for the original director, I guess, of the documentary to make documentary number 2 explaining that, oh, no, yeah, that was a dummy. But for the longest time, I'll slow down. For the longest time, they had said that it was real. And then eventually, like 10 years later, they came out with the second part to it, and it was like decoding the alien. Who knows? Some bullshit like that.
Yes.
And they said, oh, yeah, that was a dummy. But it was
it was based, yes. It was the most ridiculous fucking explanation.
Yeah.
That it was them recreating the footage of the actual autopsy film, which why wouldn't you just use the actual autopsy film? Well, no, we didn't do that. It
was too damaged.
Right. So we reshot it, we faked it, and then tried to pass it off as real. So right. Yes, it's been universally accepted and acknowledged that alien autopsy thing is bullshit. Which even as a kid, I was like, this isn't. It was crazy to watch, like, because you're like, I can't believe I'm, but I don't think it ever rang true to me. Like I think
as a kid, I was like, oh, I did not like aliens. I was very scared of them, and I thought this was real.
Yeah.
No. But by the time I saw it, it had already been debunked, and quickly learned that it wasn't. But the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my god, that's real.
No, I never. The only thing that ever really freaked me out as a kid was the McPherson tapes. Have we talked about that on the show before? Yeah. It was like Blair Witch, but it was with alien abduction, and that scared the shit out of me. Even though we know that's fake now too, but that like terrified me. But the alien autopsy thing, my bullshit detector went right off because it just didn't look real, and the way that I knew enough about filmmaking at that point too to tell like where, like, when the guy would step in front of the camera and shit, and they were doing cuts, like, it's not hard to pick it apart. And that's why they eventually had to admit that this wasn't real, because it was blatantly obvious. It did not hold up to scrutiny.
1995, when this came out, I was 4. So, I didn't know anything about any of that because I was 4 years old.
Right.
So I didn't know, but, I thought it was fascinating. And then it has come around again full circle now, where you can now buy a frame via NFT of the alien autopsy footage, and the guy saying that, no, that footage, that's 100% real. We were threatened by the government to say that it was fake. And that is absolutely real footage of an alien autopsy.
Oh
They're
my god.
back at it again, sticking to their guns. It's real.
Yeah, you ruin your credibility, dude. Move on.
Right. Go do something else.
Right.
Learn a new trick, because this one's over. we got it. But you have to talk about it. It was a big deal when it came out, and it was a big deal for at least the first 10 years until they were like, no, it's fake. Just because, again, you couldn't really prove that it wasn't real. That's the issue with a lot of this stuff, is that you can't prove it. But there was something else that kind of propelled this into popularity, and that was the 1997 alien interview footage. Have you seen that?
Yeah, that seemed a little bit creepier to me. Where they have it in the room and it's walking around. I don't know why that bothered me so much.
It's walking around. I don't know what you're talking about.
We must be talking about different stuff then.
I think we are.
Okay.
So this one, it was actually featured. It first came out in a documentary called Area 51: The Alien Interview, where a gentleman that just went by the name of Victor came forward, with what he says is an interview that took place in Area 51 with an alien. He says that the original footage was about 12 minutes long, but this was like a 3.5 minute clip, and he was gonna show it on TV. And so this whole production was put together. And actually, I watched it once, and it does seem to me that the actual documentary itself does seem very unbiased. So they have Victor come on, and he kind of tells his story. He never says what he did there. He has his voice distorted, and you can't see his face. Of course, because his life is in danger. But he's kind of an asshole, to be honest with you. The guy's very fucking rude all the time. There's a lot of questions he just won't answer. It's true. There's a lot of questions he won't answer. But he said that, frequently they would interview these aliens and they would capture them. There was no details given as to how they would capture them, but they would just capture them somehow. And they would, conduct interviews with them that lasted between 3 to 5 hours long. They were always done telepathically. But there was not a language barrier, but the things that the aliens were saying did not make sense to us because they were just that far advanced. So they were very frustrating procedures, but they talked a lot about technology, and things like that. And while Area 51 was switching everything from analog to digital, that's when Victor sought his chance and stole this clip of footage and was giving it to us to show on ABC or whatever. Um, and it's an interesting story. Again, at some point, Victor leaves the interview. He gets up and just leaves. I mean, he really is an asshole. But he did come back. I mean, he's kind of made his rounds. He'll show his face a little bit. Of course, he went on Coast to Coast, and with Art Bell, and he was an asshole to him too, and was like talking all kinds of shit, and was mad about being asked certain questions, and mad that I don't know. Some of his claims don't really make sense, but the video in question, I'll post it in the description below. It's never been proven as a hoax, but it's a dark room. You see an alien sitting there, and there's like some device that's constantly flashing a light or something, which I think he explains as some type of device used in the telepathic communication. There's another guy that's off in the corner, which Victor says is speaking to the alien currently. The alien starts freaking out, and it's like in some type of distress, and it looks like a team of doctors come in and start, checking it out, shining lights in its mouth and its eyes, and then the clip ends. That's it. There's no sound. Victor says that he purposefully took the sound out because it would give away people's identity. But that's it. A lot of people say it looks very puppet like. And, I would have to agree with that. It does look very, very puppet like. Because all you really see is the head and maybe the neck and shoulders. But the way that its head kind of moves around, and it does move around, it seems very odd. But the mouth does start reacting to the environment, a little bit. So it's not moving or anything, but it starts taking shape, I guess, because the idea is that this alien was like had labored breathing or was gasping or something.
Mm.
Um, and that does kind of correspond. But yeah, that's the alien interview footage. And like I said, the guy is kind of an asshole. But it's interesting, what the guy says about us, is that the aliens didn't like us at all. They just thought that, we were very inferior and, had really no interest in communicating with us at all, even though we had captured them. So we're like one upping them. He said that the grays, the little bodies, weren't actually, I mean, they're bodies, but they're not really their bodies, that these things exist in some type of, you know, oh my gosh, what's the word? It's like a spirit, and the spirit just jumps around different bodies, and kind of drives a different meat machine. And that's kind of how this thing was. And so, like, they would die here on Earth, but it was just the body that was dying. The actual alien itself would then go and reincarnate back into another body. Um, Consciously, it seems, knowing that they're switching bodies. Um, he explained it a lot, like, how they would entertain us a little bit, but not much. I mean, and we were just stupid to them. So I don't know. Interesting concepts.
I mean, that sounds believable. I think that kind
Yeah,
of jives with what I like to believe.
I agree with
Uh,
that. Yeah.
you know what I mean? I don't know if it's spot on, but it's not the most insane explanation of the alien phenomenon that I've heard.
No, I could buy this
Yeah.
story. If it didn't look so much like a puppet, then yeah, I could totally buy this guy's story.
Right.
But again, but then, like I said, he would get very mad. I mean, he would yell at people and be like, "Don't fucking." He wouldn't say, "Don't fucking say that," but he'd be like, "I'm not going to answer any more questions. I'm going to leave." And he'd get weird. Eventually, he started like spouting a bunch of religious nonsense. But you know what? Then again, if you have knowledge, like that there are aliens and that like you've actually fucking sat in a room and talked to them and shit, like you might go a little bit nuts. So I don't know. I wish he would reemerge. I wish he would come back and start talking to people because he had his time and he was never identified. Nobody knows exactly who he was.
Mm.
So that's interesting. Either it's a really good long con on the documentary filmmaker's you know roster that he's got going on there. Maybe it's just one of his asshole friends. I don't know. But very interesting. Yeah, the alien interview. Um, so
Yeah, I think
that's a big one.
that's an underappreciated tactic. Is when people ask you stuff you don't want to answer, just say, "I'm not answering that."
I'm not going to answer that. Right.
Yeah, because like, oh, okay, sorry.
I do that a lot. I got a problem. Like people will message me or whatever, and I don't have to fucking respond.
Oh, you're very. I
I don't
know
have to.
your Facebook posts are like 1/3 thirst trap photos, 1/3 like party invites, and 1/3 like quit talking to me.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, basically. Because I feel like I have to respond, so I always do, and I don't have to, and then it just eats away at my time talking about fucking nothing to people that I'll never meet.
Right,
So it sucks. But anyway, no is a complete sentence. That's the
right,
point of that. You don't have to answer
right.
anything. You don't owe anybody shit. So good on you, Victor, for enforcing your boundaries. We could all take a page out of Victor's book. Um, congratulations. But yeah, that was a big one. I always find that one fascinating. And then, of course, another big story out of there is the Majestic 12,
Sure.
which the Majestic 12 was allegedly like a task force signed into existence by one of the presidents, and I can't remember who. Wasn't Eisenhower. Doesn't matter. I think it was Hoover. Of 12 individuals whose job it was, particularly to go procure craft debris or anything at all that we might get from UFOs. And this was signed in after the Roswell crash happened. But there's no evidence that this really exists. Some people came forward and said, here are official government documents that we have mentioning Majestic 12 and what they do. But the government has denied those documentation, saying, no, that's not real. And that's really the extent of it. They did later come out and disclose Project Blue Book. So, if there was a Majestic 12, I would imagine that that they go hand in hand together.
It was Harry Truman. Hoover was the CIA guy.
Thank you. Harry
So,
Truman.
right. I didn't want to let that one go because I know that some of the listeners would have been like, "What the fuck?" Yelling at their radios right now. So I got you guys. I got you. But
Pat's
yeah,
doing checking.
bogus, bogus.
Bogus, yeah.
Yeah.
Bogus. That's what the military said about it. It's bogus. But I don't know. What do you think about the Majestic 12, Pato?
So that it's funny you bring that up because I recently repurchased the book that kind of got me into all of this, which is "Behold the Pale Horse" by William Cooper. It was a book that I had heard mentioned on Mancow's Morning Madhouse, he was a popular radio DJ here in Chicago back in the '90s, and he's gone to it's really interesting because he's gone on to be this like super right wing talk show pundit guy. But back in the '90s, he talked a lot about uh, New World Order stuff, black helicopters, blue money, a lot of the kind of dog whistle terms that was big with conspiracy culture at the time. And I remember one time somebody called into his radio show and mentioned William Cooper and Behold the Pale Horse, and how Cooper had a ham radio show that he would do every Saturday night, which was kind of a precursor to Coast AM. And I went to my local bookstore and I ordered this book, and super excited. Finally came. and now you can get shit off Amazon, but back then you had to go search this stuff out. And it had supposedly Bill Cooper was a retired Navy intelligence officer that had like amassed all these documents over the years, and had UFO sightings in Vietnam, and found stuff while working with the Navy, and people had given him stuff and blah blah. And he did a lot of stuff on. There was a chapter on the Majestic 12. There was a chapter on the Kennedy assassination. There was a chapter on the Lost Protocols of Zion. A lot of this stuff has since been proven to be hoax materials. And the question now is, and eventually Cooper was killed right after 9/11 by an ATF raid on his government, on his like compound in Montana, wherever the fuck he lived. He lived out in the middle of nowhere, and he had been getting into it with the local police, and the feds stormed his land, and he died in a gun battle. So what's interesting is that a lot of people are very split down the middle about Bill Cooper and whether or not the stuff that he published was knowingly fabricated, or if he was kind of bamboozled as well, right? Because we know he was naval intelligence. He's got the military record to back it up. Was he part of a disinformation campaign? Or was it just bullshit stuff that people were coming up just to fucking, you know what I mean? Like, we know it's not real, but what was the intent behind it? And with Majestic 12, it's one of those things where, like, you know, is it true? Is it not true? Is it not true and intentionally not true to make people think that it's true for a laugh? Or is it part of some elaborate disinformation campaign by the government? Right? And it's kind of interesting in retro and light with like the UAP stuff now, is that the government is now kind of saying like, we don't know what these things are. But did they potentially for decades perpetrate conspiracy theories, making it seem like they knew exactly what was going on? Right? Is Majestic 12 kind of a psyop? The theory behind it, is it something that they did so that people thought, oh no, the government's got this elite task force that travels the globe and collects all this stuff, and they have all this debris, and they have all this data, and they have all this information, and they're researching right now, and they're figuring it all out. And now we find out that's not true. Well, did they start that rumor so that we thought they were in control of it all? Right? I don't know, man. It's a real good question.
A lot of people say that. There's actually been proof that they have used UFO sightings to their advantage, which Area 51 may be responsible for that during the first whatever the fuck the airplane was. I don't give a shit about airplanes, you guys. Whatever the fuck the airplanes were that they were testing the first time around, there ended up being a rise in reported UFO sightings in the area,
The
and the
U2
government.
Lockheed U2 was like the first big thing that they tested there.
Isn't that like a terrible band also or something?
U2, Rattle and Hum's a pretty good album, but yeah, the rest of their stuff's kind of garbage.
I don't give a shit about airplanes or U2. So
You're
anyway.
you're very nihilistic this week. I don't know if it's because you no longer have sovereignty over your body or what.
Yes,
But
it is.
you
Yeah.
are scorched the fucking earth. Everyone's a goddamn liar. Fuck this shit. Fuck Bob Lazar. Fuck all
Yeah.
12 of those motherfuckers. This is all bullshit. I'm with you, sister. Let's burn some shit down.
I like Victor though and his asshole self. I love that guy. Like, yeah, Victor. Party on.
Get him.
But they did. They used the U2 test and let people think that they were UFOs. Because that was a good cover for what they were actually doing. And there's been like other reports of that. We'll talk about it eventually. There's a whole conspiracy tied to it, and one of these days we'll do it. I personally do not subscribe to that idea very much. I'm not saying that the government hasn't used UFOs to their advantage, or at least the disinformation to their advantage. They have, but I don't think it's as deep as other people think it is. I don't think the government's that smart. Honestly, that's just me. But I mean, I agree. They could have put those Majestic 12 documents out there just to, take the heat off of something else and let people talk about that for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that, because those documents did come from somewhere. Somebody fabricated them. But then again, also the government could be like, someone's like, hey, government, what the fuck's up with these files here that you got?" And then they're like, "We don't know." And they know this whole time that's theirs. I don't fucking trust the government. I don't know. But
Why
you
would you at this point? Jesus
right,
Christ.
exactly. Exactly. Um, so I mean, I could take it or leave it. With that, I mean, right now, Majestic 12 is recognized as a hoax. But I mean, sure, I could buy that it was a thing. But then again, to me, like I said, it doesn't make sense that they would declassify Project Blue Book, but not declassify Majestic 12.
Right.
Why wouldn't they?
I don't think Majestic 12 was real. I think well, because you also don't want to name names because that kind of, might telegraph a little bit about lineages of power and whatever, if it was
If it's that,
the Rothschilds or the Vanderbilts or what, not
sure.
Mike Vanderbilt, of course. He's a fucking broke ass Vanderbilt. I mean, like the real ones. I mean, like, what's
A
his
real
name?
Vanderbilt.
Like, what's his name? Anderson Cooper. Not like Mike Vanderbilt, like, Anderson Cooper. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Majestic 12 was probably bullshit. And whether or not it was an elaborate disinformation campaign, or if it was just one of these rumors that got started that spun into, some crackpot just talking shit, telling stories to
Sure.
try to see how many people would spread it. Because I mean, that's something that we were talking about this with Mike actually last episode about some people create bullshit memes that are misleading just to get a rise,
Just to
just to
do it.
see
Yeah.
how far it can spread. It's not about it's some internet troll. It's not some CIA operative, right? So was like Majestic 12 like the byproduct of some internet troll? Well, the equivalent, the modern day equivalent back then, or was it like them trying to steer people in the wrong direction or kind of guide public perception of what was happening? You know.
I mean, just like with everything else here, there's not a lot there still. There's just not enough to say one way or the other if it's real or not. I mean, the government's saying it's not, but then again, it's the government that's hiding all this shit. So do we trust them to say that it's not? I mean, and that's what it is, or do we not? Because I mean, that's kind of up to your own personal experience, I guess, with the government. But the one thing that I did find that probably does hold some water, ironically, is weather manipulation.
Yes.
People say that there's weather manipulation that happens at Area 51, that they're trying to harvest the elements to their advantage or disadvantage, whatever, for war purposes, of course. Which I 1,000% believe that, yes. We do know that the government has been involved with such type programs, that information has been declassified.
Hmm.
And we have actually covered stories on the show talking about other countries that have manipulated the weather because of drought and things like that. I think it was India that did that last year because they
Hmm.
were suffering a terrible drought, so they made it rain.
Hmm.
And we kind of talked about the ethics of it. So yeah, I think they're probably doing that. Sure.
It's interesting this comes up because I had just read something online this week about how weather manipulation is part of the military's ultimate goal. Because if you are trying to be the strongest military power on the planet, part of that would be weather manipulation, because that obviously is such a key component to warfare, is the weather and whether or not it's on your side, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not you can control fog or rain or whatever,
Sure.
and once you realize that so weather is, we know this, weather is a component of battle. It's a variable of the battlefield. And once you realize that it can be manipulated, then as a strategic military force, you are going to choose without a doubt to attempt to manipulate it to your advantage. This is just logic. This is not me talking out of my ass. This isn't fucking some pipe dream or crackpot theory. This is just, if A, then B, then C.
Right.
So yeah, yes, this is 100% happening. We know that's been happening. There's, what is it, like DARPA? What are the other ones? There's
Oh, I don't know.
there's tons of them. There's tons of them.
There's tons
just,
of them.
just
We
Google it.
we
That's your homework this week.
we can and we do manipulate weather. That is a proven fact that we have the technology to do it. So if it is a proven fact that we can manipulate weather, are we using it as a weapon in war? Absolutely. That's an easy one to swallow. Why
Hmm.
wouldn't we? That's of course we probably are. And maybe they are testing it out in the deserts of fucking Vegas.
One of the first weather modification programs was Operation Popeye, where clouds were seeded to prolong the monsoon season in Vietnam. And it was such an issue that the United Nations actually banned it under the Environmental Modification Convention.
They were like, that's not fair.
That's how much of an issue it is that NATO got together and said you're not allowed to do this. The United Nations got together and said you're not allowed to do this anymore. They would not have done that for something that was non-existent.
Right.
All right.
Yes.
Once again, basic logic. That's how much of an issue it is. Is
Right.
that yeah. So
Yeah.
that's happening.
We absolutely do. I mean, are they still doing it now? I mean, I don't think so. I don't think they need to test it anymore because they've already figured it out.
Well, that's like once they talk about this a lot with nuclear war is that once you make the bomb, even if it's going to take 10 years, even if it's going to take 50 years, you're creating something that eventually your enemy is going to get. That's just the way it goes, right? So, like, we created the bomb, but now it's something that we live in fear of. Once the genie's out of the bottle, there's no putting it back in. So we may have pioneered or been, we may be in the lead of weather modification, but there's other countries that can definitely still develop it and use us against it. So then it becomes a stalemate because if we start doing it, are they going to start doing it? And our stuff it might be more advanced and more targeted and more precise, but maybe their stuff is dangerous in its own right because it's so slipshod and all over the place that they could start some kind of ecological disaster by using their shit. So nobody
Sure.
uses their stuff at all,
Right.
right? So
Speaking of war, and we just came off of disinformation, I just have to insert this. My favorite theory when studying about all of this was that Joseph Stalin got together with Joseph Mengele, the Nazi scientist doctor, and took a bunch of teenagers and injected their heads with fluid and then put them on a secret craft that they had been working to develop and crashed it into the deserts of New Mexico so that the US government would find it and think that there was aliens.
that is not that that's not that far fetched. There was an X-Files, my favorite X-Files episode, uh has to do the one with Alex Trebek and Jesse the Body Ventura as Men in Black. The plot line of that episode is that um you kids are out driving, or like I don't know, they're going off in the woods to fuck or whatever, right? And they come across a UFO, and the UFO is piloted by Greys, and then the Greys kind of come down from the UFO and are abducted themselves by
By the kids?
no by
Oh,
Bigfoot by another UFO that's being piloted by Bigfoot. And the idea it's a very tongue-in-cheek episode. It's one of
I
the
love
ones that's
that.
played for laughs. But what the theory that the episode puts forth is that the first UFO with the Greys piloting it were actually US. It was US test craft, and what the US does is have their pilots wear these these uniforms that make them look like Greys, so that if they are captured or if they crash, it'll be mistaken for an alien spacecraft and not a US aircraft.
Wow.
So yeah, that's something that's not the first time that I've heard that. And if like let me put it like this, if it made it into an episode of the X-Files, it's got to be something that's been talked about for at least a couple
It's
decades.
got to be real.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We
Well,
all
not
know the
it's,
X-Files is 100% real
no,
based
no, no.
on
I didn't
fact.
say that. I didn't say that. I just said
I'm
X-Files
saying
wasn't
that.
necessarily cutting edge, right? Like
Sure.
it was drawing upon pre-existing mythology, pre-existing lore. So
I
I
think it's
I don't
hilarious.
I don't think that Stalin theory. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it, but I don't think it's entirely that far fetched.
And then
You
that's
know,
why at first they were excited to announce that this was an alien craft and that bodies were recovered, but that's why they recanted was because they found out that they were fucking stupid and they were duped. They didn't want anybody to know.
right?
That anyway, I thought I'd bring that one up. It was kind of fun. Um I think that one's probably bullshit, but a girl can dream. So
Sure.
But I don't have anything else. But you said you had something that was big.
No, that was the it wasn't big. It was the Zero Dark 30, them using Area 51 to plan for the American raid against Osama bin Laden.
Oh.
That was it. Just that we know that Area 51 was used for that, which is
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we know
yeah,
that. And then we also that's how we found out about the upgraded stealth technology that we had at the time. We've probably got better technology now, but was because of the Osama bin Laden raid. Was because they had used something new that they
yeah.
never
They're
really used
the
before.
stealth helicopters. Yeah,
Yeah, right. And that's another thing. People talk about the black helicopters or whatever, and it's like, well, we know those are real.
right.
And that's all we really need to know about. I mean, you know, I don't think the government needs to tell us everything. I don't think we need to know everything. Obviously, we see what happens when people get involved in politics and people are stupid. We don't need to know everything. But if they would at least give us a little bit, then we wouldn't sit around and, be left to wonder what it is that's going on. But then again, what does it matter if we know or don't know?
Well, that works to their advantage. Like the power of perception. As long as the narrative is that they're in control, that they know everything, that they have a secret treaty with the aliens, that suits them, that benefits them, it makes them more scary. They don't need to kill Kennedy, they don't need to be the one that killed Kennedy, they just need you to think they were the one that killed Kennedy and
Yeah,
not know that it was really the mafia or whatever. You know what I mean?
right.
Like it's it, you know it's better to be it's just as good to be perceived to be dangerous than to actually be dangerous. It works just the same way, right? Especially when no one's going to test you. So um, which is what makes the UAP thing interesting in today's light, because now they're putting forth this story that they're not necessarily in control, that they don't necessarily know what's going on, and you got to sit there and stroke your beard a little bit and wonder why they're doing that. Because trust me, they're not going to put out any kind of story. They're not going to say a goddamn word unless they've thought it through. They've looked at this, and I know that people disagree and say, you like to say no, they're not that smart. Well, I like to think some people are. I don't know. Maybe they're not, but I guess to assume that there's some kind of order from all this chaos is even if it's horrifying, it's still more comforting to think that people are just randomly doing shit.
Well, see, to
You
me,
know,
there is order to the chaos. It's just beyond our scope.
right?
We're not a part of the equation necessarily. We're just kind of players that it's happening to. We're too small. That's what I think. I mean, like I said, I don't think that we're smart. I don't think that we know anything. I don't think the government knows. I don't think I have any idea. I think they're right. I think for the first time ever, they're actually being somewhat truthful about these UAPs, and I think that the information that they're not sharing is more information that adds to the mystery, not solves it. And they do that because they see how people react when their answer is, well, we don't really know what the answer is. So they don't want to scare people, but I think it's deeper than what they're saying. I mean, it's deep enough for them to classify these things as a threat to us. That's what they're
Hmm.
saying. They're a threat to us. Well, why? What happened to make them threatening? What did they do? And I think that maybe just something did happen, and that's why they're saying that, but they're not going to tell us what because they don't want us to freak out. And when I mean us, I don't mean like you and me. I mean like regular people that don't listen to this show. But that's me. That's my personal take on it. What about Area 51 in general, Pato? What do you think about the place in general?
Never been there. I think it's real. I think it's definitely there.
Well, it is.
Um,
Yeah. They admitted it in 2013, finally.
right. And those guys try to throw a fire festival there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that it's probably 4/5 just your average run of the mill top secret airfield where they test top secret aircraft of various origins. I think there's probably some uh, UFO shit going on there, extraterrestrial or whatever. But I think that for the most part, it's top secret because military needs top secret for non UFO reasons, non alien reasons. And that's where they go to do their top secret shit.
Yeah. Don't go there. If you go there, fucking stop. Read the signs and fucking stop. In 2019, they did shoot and kill a man trying to enter Area 51. They fucking will shoot and kill you. I mean, the guards there aren't even like they're not government. They're subcontracted. And
Hmm.
like I can't remember the name of the company, but it's through a certain company. And they're in unmarked vehicles and things like that. But like the security there is insane. I mean, they got the cameras, but they have motion sensors miles and miles. They know that you're coming before you even know where the fuck you're going. Like they're very aware. Don't go there. Like I said, go up to the gate or whatever. I'd like to go hit up that Area 51 gate, and you guys know what I'm talking about. But that's as far as I'm gonna go. Um, but as far as what is going on there, well, something's going on there. Um, I can't tell you that it's aliens or again, I don't think we know anything about aliens like that. Could we potentially have some, crash debris? I guess so. But, Ted Raimi, he had mentioned how stupid it kind of was to think that like an alien craft would come here and then fucking crash. Like, how dumb is that? That's a huge mistake. And I kind of agree with that. How dumb is that? I don't know. Maybe we have never recovered any debris at all. Maybe it doesn't exist. But there is. Oh, go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, uh, why?
Why?
Right.
Why what? Why is that
Why?
dumb?
Yeah. I mean, like things can crash. I mean, if it
I
was,
guess things can happen, sure, but if you're a fucking intelligent race that can traverse space and time and you crash, that's dumb. I mean, I
yeah, but
guess it's
it,
hilarious.
it depends on the numbers. Like if they only sent five crafts here and one of them crashed and their success rate is only 80%. Yeah, that doesn't look good. But I mean, like if they've sent like thousands upon thousands over the millennia and there's only seven that have ever been down because of geomagnetic disturbances or something, like that might be a little bit. I
Something
don't
they
know.
didn't account for.
I'm just saying, like, I don't, it's Ted Raimi. I love you, but
Right, don't piss off Ted Raimi.
sorry.
He
I don't know
listens to the show.
who are we pissing on today. So it's like Ted Raimi gets a fucking pass. Everyone else you're gonna string up by their goddamn toenails. Okay,
Not
all
Victor
right,
though.
not
Um
Victor. Victor and
Not
Ted
Victor.
Raimi. That's
Victor and Ted Raimi, yeah.
they got a free pass. Everyone else can go fuck themselves.
Literally everybody. No, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I haven't been there either. I don't know. But there's something happening. There's something beyond just fucking airplanes. I'm telling you that right now. It's beyond
Mhm.
that. It's beyond just the military inventing shit and weaponry and so they're doing that at every single base across the entire country. And while there is heavy security places, I mean, it's nothing like it is at Area 51. Nothing like that.
Mhm.
And so that's something to take into consideration. Well, they're hiding something. What is it? I'd like to know, but they're not going to tell me, so
Yeah.
I don't think they will anyway. I think we'll continue to have stories and legends about it. But some of the other more pointed stuff we talked about, I mean, clearly the alien autopsy footage is fake. Clearly I don't think that the Majestic 12 was a thing. I just the fucking even Bob Lazar. I just don't buy a story. Um, but there's something there, and I think that it's something that we haven't even really thought of, and I think that all of our theories are probably dead wrong as to what it might be. So
Maybe.
I think that they have a secret base of they're conducting experiments on people or something. I don't know. They have like a Soylent Green factory, and that's where all of our beef supply comes from.
Maybe.
I don't know, but Area 51, it's always fascinating. I will always stand for it, and I will always continue to read anything and everything that comes out about it because, of course, I want it to be something magical and majestic and spooky, so. But that's my opinion on it. Pato, anything else?
Nope. I said all I have to say.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys back here next Wednesday.